The Real Estate Story with Adrian Butera.
Hi everybody and welcome to the Real Estate Story podcast, brought to you live from our West Footscray studio. Once again, I'm excited and delighted to bring you a couple of very special guests here today. One who's with me in the studio right now, Matthew Griffin from the REIV, that's the Real Estate Institute of Victoria. Matthew is the Membership Services Manager at the REIV, and I look forward to having a wonderful chat with you, Matthew. Welcome along.
Thank you. No, thanks for inviting me. Much appreciated.
It's great to have you in the studio. We're just what it feels like coming to the back end of COVID-19, and we're really pleased that we can have a few guests in our studio. You've come along from Ballarat today?
No, I'm originally from Ballarat.
Okay.
Now down in the city. Been down here for 10 years or 13 years now. So
not too far then.
No. Being
good.
out in the west, it's a little
really
bit more
good.
familiar for me.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, Matthew, I wanted to dedicate this episode to talking to you about the opportunity of those that are considering getting into real estate. We're hearing lots of chatter at the moment because of the virus, because of the challenging economic times that we're in, that people are without a job, and some may be stepping away from one vocation and considering other vocations.
Definitely.
So I really thought it'd be great timing to talk about the possibility of people getting into real estate. Some may have considered it before. Some may have never considered it, and this may be the seeding moment that puts that element of thought in their mind that allows them to consider as a vocation.
Definitely, spot on.
I know you've had the role as Membership Service Manager, but you've also been the training manager there. Tell us a bit about your role as the training manager and in fact what you do now.
Yeah, sure. So I did 4 years in the training department, 2 of those looking after the team on the floor and eventually moving into the training manager role. So we were overseeing not only the compliance of the courses that we ran, but also the rolling out of our professional development courses. We do the Certificate 4 in Property Services, which is the course that leads to becoming a licensed agent, as well as the Agent's Representative course. So those 2 courses, we need to meet some fairly stringent and strict compliance requirements. So that takes up quite a bit of the time. And then the rest of the time was liaising with our chapters, committees and the wider industry on the professional development needs, and liaising with the events team as well to make sure there's some synergy there. So a lot of customer service, a lot of compliance, and a lot of fact finding. So that was where I spent my time in the training team before eventually moving across to the membership services management role.
You talk about your role as part of the training team. Now, traineeships are a part of that, and you and I had a conversation off air before we stepped into the studio about one of our team possibly becoming a trainee and the traineeship. Tell me a little bit about the traineeship for those that may be coming at perhaps a more junior level, considering our industry. What does a traineeship look like?
Yeah, sure. Look, traineeship, it's a fantastic way to enter a new industry for both parties. It's perfect for the employer and the employee. You get to have them trained in your way of doing things, and essentially the way it works, it's just the delivery is done on site. So once the agreement is reached, the apprenticeship centre signs off on it, the employee starts, and we then have a trainer that'll come out once a quarter and observe, run through each of the units that are required for the course, and take the employee through. During the course, there'll be monthly contact as well, email, phone to assist. So we tend to find that it has very good strike rate with completion because the students are a lot more motivated. It's an easier way of studying as well, so they get recognition for the work they're doing on the job, as opposed to doing it class-based, where they may have to recreate exactly what they do day to day in their course.
So being mentored by their principal or manager or whatever the case may be in that office, obviously getting close with that.
Very much so.
Them.
Very much so. There's the mentoring side of things. There's being able to ask questions of your teammates. So you might have an assessment that's got some certain questions around regulations, legislation, marketing campaigns, even trust accounting. The whole gamut's covered in the Cert 4, so you can't know everything. So having colleagues to be able to just lean over, ask a question of is very valuable to them. Very valuable.
fantastic. And now, how long does a typical traineeship in the real estate industry go for?
You get up to 2 years. That can then be pushed out if an agreement's reached, but essentially 2 years. We find that most of our trainees get it ticked off quite a bit quicker though, just because they're fairly motivated, and once they get on a roll, they've got their colleagues to ask questions of. A good employer will assist, because sometimes we have cases where the course does drag out because work does get in the way, so they don't release them as much as they should to get the work done. So that can be a little bit of a pitfall or something to be mindful of, but generally most of the employers are great and will help the trainee along, and they get through pretty quick. So the contract will usually say 2 years, but we tend to find it comes in maybe 4 months earlier.
And what the traineeship qualification, what do you actually achieve at the end of it? Does it mean that you're an agent's rep? Are you a fully licensed estate agent? Or are you somewhere in between but just skilled up?
Well, one of the beauties of it is that initially you'll tick off the agent's rep. That's the first 3 units that the course starts with. So you'll get those under your belt, and then you'll be working on the job, ticking off those remaining 21 units, and then you'll walk away with the Certificate 4 in Property Services Real Estate, which is the course that's required if you want to apply for your licence. So once you've done that course and you've got the 12 months experience under your belt working in the industry, you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone and apply for your licence as well. So,
gee, that's good and scary at the same time.
Yes.
For those listening, and particularly to my friends and family, it took me years and years and years to become a licensed estate agent. To think that you could tick that off in such a short time frame, I got to say, I reckon that's a great idea.
Yes.
As long as you get those skills, it's important to get the skills.
Yeah, that's right. It's one of the things that we do find, and a trainee should consider, is how committed to the industry they are. Maybe they want to just do the agent's rep, get a couple of years under their belt and see if it's for them. And then, but geez, if you work for a year and a half, get the Certificate 4 under your belt, well, that doesn't hurt either, particularly if you fall under the government funding categories as well, and you won't be too much out of pocket. So, yeah, it doesn't hurt.
How many trainees are going through the program at any one time? Now, this might be an unusual time because of COVID-19, but typically?
Well, the last 4 years, we've seen an average of about 92, 93 per year taking it up. So at the moment, we've got around 120 active. So it ebbs and flows with people joining, people completing.
Of course. Yeah, that's great. So across the whole state?
That's just the REIV. Across the whole state, I couldn't give you 100% accurate figures there.
Yeah, no, sorry, I probably should just elaborate. So you would cover traineeships across regional Victoria as well from the institute?
Very much so, yes. We will drive out on site no matter where you are in Victoria. We will come and visit you once a quarter. Yeah, very committed to that.
Great to see. Now, what's you talk about the thorough training and on the job and the mentoring by principal or manager or colleague. What's the success rate? Have you got any statistics, whether it's factual data, or have you got a feeling on how many after the traineeship stay within our industry?
Yeah, that's a really interesting one, that one, the statistics on how long they do stay in the industry. What we do find is that those that complete the licence course and become a licensed agent stick longer in the industry than somebody who's just done the agent's rep. It's anecdotally, a lot of our agent's rep survivors, for want of a better term, they often say to us that they stay in the industry because they found the right employer or the right mentor. You only have to look at the BLA data each year to see the huge drop-offs. So there is a lot of churn with the agents reps in that first 12 months. We see that in our membership data as well.
Why do you think that is? And this is a bit of a subjective question, but why do you think, and perhaps separate to the conversation about the traineeship, why do you think there are agent drop-offs, agents reps that start and drop off?
I would say that it is the lack of research they've done going into the industry. Probably had Sometimes we find they get stars in their eyes, think that it might be easy money, and they get in and they find it's not for them. So I think that is generally the reason why. And one thing that we've done at the REIV, more so with the certificate 4 though than the agent's rep, because the agent's rep, it's not a big commitment to do the course financially or time-wise, but we've tried to interview and set the scene for our students so that they're aware of what they're getting into, what the requirements of the course are, and what some of the requirements of the industry are as well. So we often encourage them to get out, do their research, talk to agents and agencies about some of the expectations of being a real estate agent.
Yeah. It's important to set that expectation.
Yes.
A couple of questions just on that. I'm going to put you on the spot. What does it cost to do the agent's rep at the REIV?
Yeah, sure. It has actually come down. It is, don't quote me on this because it's been only in the last couple of days, but I believe it's around the low 600, maybe just under 600.
Okay.
And the reason for that is we've just invested in a new online system.
Wonderful.
So a lot of the training can be done online as well as some in classroom. So therefore we've been able to bring costs down. So it's the classroom based is 5 days on site, and the pure online version now you just log in, you have a Zoom meeting essentially, and your trainer will be there, and you can do that on your time. You can watch recorded versions of the class.
Yeah, great.
So it's a lot more flexible now. So because of that, we've been able to bring the price down.
Well, we've all learnt flexibility, haven't we, over the last 3 months?
Very
we've all
much
had
so.
to work out how we can manage working from home or within an environment with very few people around us anyhow.
Yes.
It really is, it's amazing to listen to others that have gotten in the real estate industry and stepped out again. And I think it is that expectation that they haven't done the research about. I also think, and I'm going to ask you a comment, I also think from time to time that individuals have gone into businesses and failed to get either good support, leadership, mentoring, coaching within the own parameters of that business. Have you had any experiences, or can you share anything with me or thoughts on those that have had really outstanding supervision and guidance through a particular business, or perhaps some that you thought hadn't?
No, I think you do find that the agencies that have got a good structure, good management structure, and are very open to, particularly those that are open to traineeships, I find are very keen to bring in new ideas and new thoughts and sculpt them in their fashion, as well as taking on some of the new thoughts from those young entrants into the industry. I think it's vital though that there's good mentors that can take the new staff under their wing, because let's face it, the agent's rep course, 3 units, just skims over the surface of the industry.
Yeah, of course.
You're a liability out there if you don't have a good mentor. So I think that really has to be rammed home, and I think our employers out there need to be very mindful that an agent's rep doesn't deliver a ready-made product. They've had 1 unit going over the basics of the industry, the legislation, the who's who, 1 unit going through the basics of property management, and 1 unit going through the basics of sales, and they haven't dived any deeper than that. So when you think of the structure of the course that's required to be a licensed agent, the agent's rep is just 3 units and 3 introductory units plucked out of that. So I guess the idea that Consumer Affairs have as the regulator is that you do those 3 units, you get a basic overview, but the onus is on the mentor, the officer in effective control, to guide and refine that staff member, and then hopefully encourage them to do their licence so they can get that deeper learning.
Yeah, it's so important to have that training and coaching, and I want to say from a Compton Green perspective, we do weekly training. It's only an hour, and that is in addition to all the little whip catch-ups and meeting and talking with the team. I mean, we're not a huge business. We're just under 30 people here, so we have that ability to be nimble. But weekly training is a requirement by all the sales team particularly.
Yeah, that's very sound.
It's important, but I will say there are businesses out there, and I don't want to just acknowledge ourselves. There's companies like Barry Plant, the Ray White organisation, Jealous Craig Group. There are organisations out there that have really active, aggressive training schemes that are really superior within their industry, within their marketplaces, and so important. That
Couldn't agree more.
constant learning, we're constantly evolving. Even during the COVID times, we've all had to learn how to do online auctions and in property management inspections via Zoom. Constantly learning.
Yeah,
how to
so
do
true.
things better.
I think that's a really good point, that some of those bigger franchises do run some really fantastic and sophisticated training programs for their staff, and that should be encouraged. And some of the independents out there that are smaller doing it on their own, we find we get some great support from them at the institute, bringing their staff regularly. So as much as they may not be able to do it themselves because they don't have the backing, they're very good at supporting their staff and the institute by sending their staff to do training. So it's no surprise the agencies that'll have high churn, it's probably because they're not mentoring as well as they could. Those that have long-term employees, well, they're probably doing
really
good
important. And Matthew, can you speak at all to what average agents earn? Have you got any data on that?
It's an interesting one. All the statistical sites that you go to throw up different figures. It's around the 57 to 62 grand is the base award. So that's the figure that we generally go by when we're talking to potential entrants and they're asking questions. That's the base rate, and then there's bonuses on top of that. So generally, is that those that stay in the industry for a few years over that first 3, 4, 5 year period, they will earn more than that because they'll be doing well and they'll be getting some bonuses on top. But how far above they're exceeding it, who knows? So, but that's about as deep as I can get on that one.
Yeah, fair enough.
We haven't done any research from our data team as to what people are earning, and it's something that most of the agencies would probably want to keep close to their chest as well. It's starting to get a little.
I do monthly research on that. It's called payroll. I get to see my payroll every month. And I think it's important, and I don't mind sharing to some of our listeners that from an administration point of view, depending on experience, we've got admin people, and if I'll base these numbers on full-time, admin people earning between 50 and 100,000 per year, but depending on their experience.
Yep.
And again, please base that on full-time hours. We've got salespeople earning from the award wage. And when I say award wage, that's they've either just started with us or it's early days in their career. And again, that's going to be in that sort of mid-50s bracket. But we've also got salespeople going into mid-hundreds, 140, 150,000 per year. And you will certainly hear stories of agents earning 2, 3, 4, and I'd dare say there'd be some earning right up to that 7-figure
sure.
in some parts of Victoria and certainly many parts of Australia. From a property management point of view, those that are thinking about property management, again, I can tell you from my research, property managers, depending on experience, anywhere from 50, again, right through up to 100,000. It's just going to be dependent on what they're delivering within that business. Geographic will also play a role. CBD property managers versus suburban property managers. There'll be a small variable there. And I will point out with property managers, they can have inclusive packages of vehicles, phone, some other little benefits there as part of that package.
Yeah, it's a point that, and going back to what we were talking about earlier, that managing expectation and one of the churn rates for the new entrants into the industry is that they only hear the good figures. They don't hear that initial first year, the base salary, and so their expectations will be that they're going to earn 100K plus in year one, and then when it doesn't happen, they walk away. I think it just comes back to managing that expectations. Do your research, of course, have the dream and have the goal. That's so important, but it's a progression.
Yes, so important. And people just need to understand that day one. It is a long game, I say, real estate, particularly sales. People like to do business with those that they like and trust.
Yes.
And they don't always necessarily like you and trust you in the first 5 minutes. And it's important to have some time under your belt. I certainly believe a long game. I know some of my lead people here have been with me over 15 years, or nearly 15 years, I should say. And that's just testament to their success gradually growing over that time. There's exceptions, and I understand others have done it all very quickly, but there is time that needs to happen. Now, that's not to say, for those that are listening right now, that you can't fast-track a sales career in a short amount of time. If you get to know people quickly, you can engage and build those relationships, you can grow a real estate career very quickly in sales.
Definitely, yeah. I've even seen that in my position. Yeah, there's been some great stories from some of our recent agents rep students.
Yeah, it really is. It really is a wonderful career and a wonderful industry to be a part of.
Yeah, no doubt.
Andrew, what else do the REIV assist with? You've given us an insight into the traineeship, and you've talked a little bit about your role as member services manager. What else do the REIV get involved with? Keeping in mind, we had Gil on the program 8 weeks ago, but give us a quick insight on what else you think the Institute can offer to potential members even.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think one of the key areas is that we can colour in the gaps with the agents rep and the certificate 4 training. I talked about how it can skim over some of the deeper parts of the industry, commercial and industrial, business broking, buyers advocacy. They're not really discussed in great depth in the certificate 4 course. So through our professional development training, you can go deeper into those subjects and start to learn a little bit more about those various specialties. So I think that's one of the key things that we can provide, is not just the accredited training, but then going deeper into that. Then you've got the events in the various areas as well, which allow you to network, hear from experts, topics of the moment. As everybody would have seen over the last few months, we've just been flooding our members with COVID updates, changes to regulations, sessions on how to try and interpret what's being laid down. So I think they're two of the really key things that we provide. Great service is our information officers. Jim and David take calls all day, every day from our members with questions, and even potential members as well. They'll call the guys and talk about what they may need to do to get into the industry if they're looking to start their own agency as well. So I think that's a really valuable resource that shouldn't be undervalued. The data and the information that we churn out as well, I think is really important too, to look at trends, keep on top of changes in the industry too. So it's always helpful to have a single point of reference to go to get the changes, to find out what's happening.
Yeah, fantastic. Look, a wonderful institute, and it's great to have a governing body or a membership body there to support us in our business day to day. So thank you for that ongoing support. Now, before we leave you, I've got my one final question. What tips can you give anybody that's listening to this going, you know what, real estate, maybe I will, maybe I'll become a trainee, maybe I'll call up and I want to jump straight into the deep end and be a senior property manager, or I want to be a senior salesperson. What hints or tips could you give those people right now that are thinking about it?
Yeah, what I would say is do your research, go and talk to agents, talk to agencies, get a feel for how the industry works, what the commitments are, see the passion from the people in the industry. It's one thing that blows me away continually is how passionate real estate agents are, and I love it. And I think somebody who really wants to get into the industry will thrive on that. So talk, find out what's involved, and try and work out what area of the industry that you want to get into as well. So if you're brash and confident and love to talk, sales, maybe property management isn't for you, and you've been thinking it is. You can never pigeonhole people, but just get a feel for what area of the industry is for you, and I think that will help your transition in. The other thing I think too is age is not a barrier, and I think older people, don't be afraid to make the jump. That experience is so valuable, your people skills, everything you've learned in your previous roles and just your general life experience, and those skills in interacting with people will stand you in good stead. So if you've thought about it, you're keen on a career change, I think older people, 50 plus, even I've seen some guys and girls in their 60s have come and done their agent's rep and then had a very successful career in real estate because they had the drive, they knew what they wanted, they'd done their research. So
yeah, wonderful. And I'm just going to repeat that. Age is no barrier. I think whether you're 20, 30, 40, 50 or 60, we'd love to be talking to people with those people skills. Definitely. In all those age groups. Matthew Griffin, thank you so much for coming along and joining us today. We really appreciate you coming along, spending the time and enlightening us on more on getting into the real estate industry. Thank you. We'll see you after the break.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Have you used the Keep Me Posted button on our website? Just click Keep Me Posted and fill in your requirements and you'll automatically receive all our up-to-date listings as they appear.
Now let's see if our technology is working. Steele Sexton, are you on the line?
Good afternoon, Adrian. I am.
Oh, I love it when technology works that way. Thanks for dialing in, Steele. Now,
Thanks for having me.
Everybody will notice I didn't introduce Steele at the very beginning because I just wasn't sure whether he'll be out of an appointment in time. So I really appreciate you. Steele, calling in and joining us on the real estate story. Now, I wanted to quickly ask you, Steele, you started at Compton Green how long ago?
2006.
14 years. That's gone quick, hasn't it?
14. It has. It's been fun.
2 children, a fiance, a couple of overseas trips. You know,
Yep.
You've done it all, haven't you?
Done it all. I've, to Matthew's point, I figured out property management was a job you could do and do well, and then over time realised that sales was for me.
Yeah, you have taken that journey as well. Now, you also started at Compton Green as a trainee 14 years ago. Can you give us a couple of insights into that?
Look, it was a good way to learn more about different elements and have sort of I guess your handheld when you're entering into the system. It's quite daunting. It certainly was for me as a young 20-ish something adult.
Yeah, and it gave you obviously learned about multiple streams at the time because you started in property management, then you went to sales, but you learnt both during the traineeship. Is that right?
Correct, as well as touching on some commercial elements, commercial real estate elements as well. Certainly, the theory, whilst practicing in property management full time, was great.
Steele, I really appreciate you finding the time to call in today. But my final question to you is going to be, what can you summarise in however many words you need are the critical qualities and attributes of a successful real estate salesperson? Because that's what you are now. What are those qualities and attributes?
I think first and foremost, looking after people, having a good connection and doing what you say you will, overachieving for people, going over and above. All of those things, because if you're going to be good at real estate, you're going to want to be in it for a long time. So getting a good core network of good trusted clients and referral business, I'd say, will put you in great stead.
Steele, thank you very much. I really appreciate you dialing in. Thanks very much. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and we will see you a little bit later today. Ladies and gentlemen, Steele Sexton.
The sun is shining. I'm going to keep enjoying it.
You do that, mate.
Are you on
See
the
you later.
move with
Cheers.
a smartphone in hand? Go to comptongreen.com.au and our mobile-friendly website will make it easy to find the latest listings for sale and rent in the Inner West.
Well, there we have it. Before I say goodbye to everybody, I've got my real estate story. And this week's story is a very simple one on how I got into real estate. It was very simple. Back when I was 20 years old, I remember we were in a family business. We're in a lighting business, would you believe? My father and I having a lighting business in the northern suburbs of Melbourne that we had to shut down. It was an awkward time of our life. It was the recession that I think we had to have, and we stepped away from that. And I spent some months trying to work out what I was going to do. And would you believe I sold some food? I tried to work out what was going to be my next passion. When I say food, I was selling food to restaurants, which was bizarre and weird, but it was another career opportunity that I did not enjoy. So I thought, well, that's not going to be for me. And would you believe that real estate was a brochure that I picked up back in time at RMIT, and I thought that could be a career move for me. So I was flicking through the Age newspaper, as you did back then, and I saw an ad from the Ray White Group, and it said managers wanted. And I thought, well, most definitely I could be a manager, even though I'd never done a day of real estate in my life. And, you know, one thing led to another. I went out to a meeting at their corporate office at the time in South Yarra. I met what was then, for many years of my life, a mentor, Nick Lynch, and Nick got me involved in real estate, pointed me towards Ray White Lay Law. That was my first real estate opportunity, my first job. In fact, I got the job without doing the agent's rep. That's not to say that I practiced real estate. They said, you've got the job, now go get the agent's rep. So I did. I went and got my agent's representative certificate. I spent 4 years at Ray White Lay Law, and it's funny how things work out. Not long after that 4 years was over, I then secured a job at the Ray White corporate office. And I think the next 20 odd years have been very good to me, and here I am now sitting in front of you at Compton Green, West Footscray. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. We'll see you next week.
The Real Estate Story brought to you by Compton Green.